Hello. I'm going to do my best to do something that is not possible, but I'm going to try to do it anyway. I'm sorry for this, but I'm going to try and explain women. I know that's something men shouldn't really do with mansplaining what it is to be a woman, but I need to try as best I can because I found it to be very, very important. Everyone has heard behind any successful man, there is a woman, and so on and so on and so on, which is all true, by the way, but I'm going to do my best. First, I'm going to show you and remind you of what you've seen before, and we'll see again, is that there is a sequential undulation that goes autumn, where the dark line begins, 3 months of autumn going down, 3 months of winter going up, 3 months of spring, equinox going up to the peak of the day length, solstice, and then coming down again with 3 more women. I know they're just symbols, so I'm going to try my best to put it in a format that might be easier for you to grasp. Here you are. This is what I mean by this is a sequence of 6 women. What I mean by that, each one of these is symbolically represented in sequence, but it corresponds to a specific location in the family tree. I know it's tough to think of your grandmothers, 6 of them, being related to a specific position in the sequence of seasons. And this, as you would know from the very top here, is the peak of the summer, the very beginning of the month of July in the Northern Hemisphere, June 21st to July 21st, one girl. Now, what I mean by one girl is that later on we have a birth order pattern where she is the first child of the father. We'll go into birth order another time. This is more about being able to recognize how this moment is an opportunity linked to all the other women. Because ultimately, the connections and continuations, once they're recognized, appreciated, and described, these 6 women make up the interior structure of who I am. Meaning that these are the women inside me that do everything from digestion, assimilation, repair of the body, cleaning of the body, kidneys, bowels, you name it, skin, lungs, bladder, all of the repair of tissue, body consonants, everything there that's, well, so many things. Now we'll come back to just giving you some suggestions. And I just notice that I'm sharing with you my experiences. And by no means do I claim to have any perfection in this. I'm sharing with you what my experience is. It's up to you to see if it really works for you. And I'm in the midst of practicing this now for, well, my own self, about 11 months. We've been practicing this one cycle for 11 and a half months. But starting out in the autumn, I'm urging you to consider what this looks like and feels like for yourself. We'll come back to about why, but first, let me help you identify where these are. I mentioned number 1 is father's mother. Now on this graphic behind me, I'm showing you the family tree. This is father's mother. That's called number 1. There are all kinds of attributes later on we'll get to, but in the body it represents the bone structure and a whole series of other things relative to the digestion function. And there are hours of information about what father's mother does. But to basically help you with that, it has a lot to do with the will and one's personal radiance, one's personal capacity to have a cohesive will and to be individually your own radiance in the world. Not an easy thing to do, by the way. And my practice of it has revealed I'm really in need of developing more of my own innate identity and having my own innate will. That's the one girl function. But I want to take you through all 6 of these, because without realizing it, they are basically separated in their distinct categories, but it's possible to begin the process of bringing them together. Now, I know it's obvious in science, but I'll tell you anyway. None of your grandmothers in the family tree are very much in connection with your opposite gender parents. So your mother's family has little or nothing to do with your father's family. So this is your father's family, your mother's family. Those two basically have no inherent unity in them at all until it comes down to you. So only with you does your father and mother's genetics arrive to create you. I know that's obvious, but what's not obvious is that the grandparents and great-grandparents from both sides of the family, in many cases, didn't know each other, and a lot of cases didn't even like each other because there were war or something, or they were in-laws of something or not. I'm saying that the sequence of the things we're about to go through, they are distinctly individual attributes. That's good. But you can also learn how to begin the process of linking one to the other and to the other to create a cycle of 3, and a cycle of 3, and eventually a cycle of 1, which is all 6 of them working together in combination. Some of you might remember a program I had in the early 1990s called Global Gratitude. It's still around. You can find it certain places. But I tried to write out a universal description of these 6 grandmothers because they correspond to the back half of the 6 chakra systems in the body that your great grandmothers and your paternal and maternal grandparents, they are all part of a network. Phew. So I'm going to suggest that you do something that's not common. Simply start by saying, thank you. It's a remarkable thing. Even if you don't like her, your father's mother, hopefully you got a chance to meet her, but by the way, do your best to do nothing to judge any form of her social emotional behavior, because whatever her social emotional memory is also contained inside of you in what would be described as your epigenetic crystallized memory. Now, eventually, the ideal thing is to identify the universal beauty of the number 1 girl while removing the dross of her unresolved emotional content that she handed down to you that may affect your digestion, your bones, your will, your capacity to be in the world. Father's mother is intensely important. And part of the reason for that is she represents the first emergence of the female energy in the masculine side of the family. So she comes out literally at the peak of light. Her father, just before her, was what's called the six-boy phenomenon, and I'll identify that for you. Father's mother's father is what we call the six-boy phenomenon, which is the most powerful yang expression of the ability to achieve something. You can make a choice and materialize matter. That's what the six-boy function is. All that language really means is everything you choose has a consequence. That's all it really says. The six-boy function is everything that you choose has a result. How you choose it, what you choose, the feelings you have, it's a six-boy function that produces his daughter. So coming right before the one girl is the six-boy making a choice and producing his daughter, your father's mother. Now, whether or not you met her, I would suggest that you, for the rest of your life, increase your innate capacity to feel her and have appreciation and the willingness to, with empathy, examine what's good and gradually remove what's unhealthy. Only you can do that. Nobody can remove anything from inside you, particularly past the age of 8. Under the age of 8, yes, people can remove things from children that their parents or grandparents put there, but that's a whole nother story. But for us, most adults, you are the only one who can access your father's mother's memory process and begin cleaning it out through a process that we'll describe as we go on. The second one happens to be, by the way, her mother-in-law. Now, one of the most difficult of all connections in all of the functions of the family tree is how the in-laws meet. So in this case, for example, I'll just draw it with my finger. This is your father and your father's mother. Now, her mother-in-law, your father's mother, married your father's father. His mother is what's called your number 3 girl, your father's mother. Do your best. Hang in there. I know it's a lot. If you need to take a breath, go ahead. But this is a crucial point for you to get to. This 3-girl point, it's green because it corresponds to the plant kingdom. It's green because it is health, vitality. It is everything that we see in community and cooperation. It's wisdom, it's strength, it's vitality, it's prosperity. It has many different things involved in that. But it's connected to your father's mother. That's her mother-in-law. Maybe yours was perfect, but very few of these relationships between your father's family and your father's mother's family, oftentimes they were not cooperative. Wrong social class, wrong race, wrong income class, wrong country, something. Oftentimes, the great-grandparents from those two sides of the family either didn't know each other, didn't like each other. This is a very significant place for you to access and begin the process of removing the unloving and building the loving. So you can go into your own being and even create an imaginative relationship with your number 3. What do I mean, imaginative relationship? Assuming that most people have not met their father's father's mother. That's the 3 girl, the emerald green plant kingdom goddess of the forest and medicine, wisdom, very important place. But if you haven't met her, you can use what I would describe as a 2 girl creative imagination. You can use your own right to feel, imagine, and visualize what it feels like to hug her. Now, this 3 girl function is relative to touch. It's relative to the body. It's relative to regeneration, all kinds of very important things, because she takes the pattern of number 1 girl and physically builds a body to match it. So if the 1 girl is holding memories that are difficult, the 3 girl combines those difficult memories and builds a body that has, if you will, defects or potential diseases, functions, stroke, heart attack, cancer. They begin years before they materialize in the body, and they primarily materialize as a result of the unresolved feelings between these 2 women. So I'm suggesting you can use creative imagination to close your eyes, go up to your father's father's mother that you probably never met, and see a beautiful woman of the forest, a wise, loving, caring, huggable great-grandmother. Just give her a long, warm hug. Use the magic words. Yes, there are magic words. The magic words would be, thank you for being my great-grandmother. I may never have a chance to meet you physically, but thank you for all that you do to my assimilation, healing my body, helping my liver, helping my skin, giving me the sense of security and groundedness and well-being. Yes, it's an important grandmother. This is a link to father's father's mother. Now we're still on the father's side of the family. First, we did father's mother, number 1, bones, family, matriarch, groundedness, and a few other things I just call now radiance. 3 girl, health, habitation, experience, embodiment. Number 5 is in a unique position to help to unify these or not. Number 5 happens to be father's mother's mother. I can see that correctly on the chart. It's father's mother's mother happens to be this. Now it's described in a larger way than the other 2 because these size of circles on the outside, they have to do with the magnitude of inclusiveness. What that means is number 1 girl's primary diameter of inclusiveness is family. And within that, there's self. And eventually the lessons in family is to become self. Then the second level of magnitude of inclusiveness is community, where I have to take my own self from my family and go up into a much larger diameter of inclusiveness, which can be thousands, if not millions of people in the community that you live in, and you're living in a community as an individual. And by the way, that's one of the hardest places to be, is to be an individual in the middle of a community where it's supposed to be about sharing and fairness and justice and equilibrium and harmony and caring. But, well, as you know, sometimes selfishness and power and bitterness and greed have a tendency to disturb that one. But now the magnitude of inclusiveness in number 5 is not so easy, because number 5 is inclusive of all living things. The first one, family. The second one, the ability for community, much, much larger, maybe even millions of times larger. The last one is all living things. Wow, that diameter of inclusiveness includes not only the population of the planet, all living things includes animal kingdom, plant kingdom, microbes, and otherwise, all living things. Not to overemphasize it, but when I said all, I meant all, which means all things unseen, spiritual and otherwise, not just the life forms of the trillions of life forms that we have all around us in the soil and in the air and in our own body. She's inclusive of all of them. Wow. In the body, that corresponds to the immune system function. The immune system now touches everything. It's in the blood, outside the blood, between the organs, in the organs, on the skin, above the skin, off the skin. Okay, that last one is something that you just have to consider. I'm saying that the immune system extends off the physical body, past the parameters of senses, and actually connects into your energetic field around you, and now plans for who should come to you. Wait, I just said this woman here sends out a message for somebody to meet you on a corner somewhere and have an encounter that might lead to sex and baby or marriage and divorce or father's mother's mother. I urge you, even if you haven't ever thought of her, you're not going to get by the way, by ignoring them all. It's just not going to work. So if you go to her, it's father's mother's mother, do the magic thing. Thank you for being my great grandmother, for helping me to feel so deeply into the magnitude of all living things. Wow. Gratitude, by the way, can go a long ways. Oh, by the way, Grandma, I appreciate that you're in touch with everything, but there's only some things I want to touch me, and other things I would like to leave where they are. Which, by the way, whether you know it or not, there's been violence and war and cruelty going on for thousands of years, and it has codified into mass consciousness. And oh, by the way, the great grandmother can touch into that and help you repeat it if you want. But I would suggest that you make a choice to filter certain things and only to receive what's genuinely loving and leave the rest. But in order to do that, you need what comes next. I know it's hard to get this, but we just went from the vast, unknowable containment of all living things, seen and unseen, to the very next month, which turns out to be the first month of autumn. The first 3 months we were talking about in this sequence is first month of summer, second month of summer, third month of summer, cutting into the September Northern Hemisphere equivalent of the first month of autumn. That comes into another diameter that's really small. That really small one, same thing as the other ones, is self, others, and all, where the first thing I have to do is to take everything that those three have done inside of me. Now, you may or may not consider that to be very important, but it's very important, because if I can acknowledge and receive what's truly loving from them, I can take that inside my own sincere desire to feel. Because this two-girl position is the entry point into all future law of attraction phenomena. If that's not enough, let's just go to number two girl for a moment. Let me identify where that is. It's mother's mother. Now, this is just my opinion, but I'd have to estimate about 80% of all biochemical emotional processing is a direct result of how your mother felt during your conception, during your gestation, during your early childhood. Whatever your mother was going through was being strongly embedded in you. And then her mother, your mother's mother's mother, these two mothers are the first two, after the first 2 months of autumn, first month and second month of autumn, connected. So again, I'm urging you to at least give it some thought. Your mother's mother, regardless of what you know, she might be beautiful, she might be difficult, she might be skinny, she might be overweight, she might be diabetic, she might be angry. But your task is to not judge any of that and experience the divine inner perfection of your two-girl grandmother, because she's orienting your capacity to feel. Now, that capacity to feel, oddly enough, regulates all the water in the body, bladder, kidney function, and it regulates lots of other things going into the lungs and skin and the breath. The whole process of that two-girl function is to be laundered in the capacity to be able to release, change, metamorphose, let go, receive. So the two-girl into the four-girl, this is mother's mother's mother. Let me locate that for you again. Mother's mother's mother. She's called four-girl. And anytime I refer to something that is four, I'm really at the four, which is head is 6, throat is 5, chest is 4. In the front is masculine, in the back is feminine, because really it's the four-girl that is primarily involved in all of the changes of what happens in your capacity to grow in feeling. Four-girl, change, metamorphose, receiving, filtering, transparency. It's also the very same place that you exit the body at night when you go to sleep, because each one of these different months also corresponds to a different time of the day. So two-girl is sunset, 6 to 8 p.m. Four-girl is 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And that's the time period where most people go from vertical to horizontal and they leave. Yes, you leave your body at night to go to the next one, which is somewhere pristinely mysterious, number 6. Number 6 is mother's father's mother. She corresponds to the pineal. She rules the night and a whole bunch of other things, because she rules your capacity to be able to receive from the divine level. Okay. Whether or not you grasp all this, and by the way, I'm still learning how to grasp it myself, hour to hour. What I'm trying to do is like, okay, could you imagine trying to paint the Sistine Chapel? Now, most of you have seen some photography. I've never seen it physically, but you've seen pictures of the Sistine Chapel, and you see the Michelangelo where the touch of the fingertip of man and God meet. To me, that's essentially what we're trying to do. We're trying to paint the Sistine Chapel using Crayola. So I'm trying to paint the Sistine Chapel of the most beautiful sequence of life that you could imagine, of the universal sequence of 6 women in a row who are about to give inspiration to her son. but for me, I feel like I'm really right-handed, but my Crayola is in my left hand, and I'm up there trying to do a Michelangelo thing. I'm not doing so well, but what else are you going to do but keep practicing? So I'm practicing Crayola on the ceiling when really I want to see the face of God and whatever. But in order to do that, one by one, month by month, grandmother by grandmother, I have different feelings. Lake, ocean, snow, silence, pristine. All 6 of these have pristine qualities to them. I'm still learning how they can become a unified group, sensitive to and responsive to whatever choice it is I'm going to make. I'm choosing to Crayola the Sistine Chapel until it turns into a paintbrush. It may take me a long time to learn how to paint as well as Michelangelo, but you got to start somewhere. So I'm suggesting that you might just go through each one of these great grandmothers one at a time and say the magic words. Thank you for being my great grandmother. And then you can add in a few other things if you want, whatever you feel like. You can use your own imaginative capacity, touch your own heart, touch her, and then breathe. Or you can do whatever you want. You can dance if you want. They love to dance. All 6 of them do, by the way. They dance different ways. We won't go into that this time. But I thought I'd at least introduce you into something that is hard for me to do, hard for me to explain, but is ultimately very useful. Now, this just happens to be the 3rd week of the 3rd girl. This just happens to be the 2nd month of summer, and I'm right there. I'm looking forward to going through the next month and coming out at the beginning of it all, but I'm realizing that if I start now, it's kind of like the difference between diving off a rock versus diving off a springboard versus diving off a tower. Well, descending processes. Dive as deeply as you want. I urge you to consider what this feels like and then join us in the Northern Hemisphere in September. Phew. If you want to ask some questions on this, go right ahead and ask me. I'll do my best to answer, even though I don't always have the answers. Good luck. Talk to you soon.